We are in Hilversum, where we are teaching the Mastering the Requirements process workshop, and I'm talking to James Archer, an associate of the Atlantic Systems Guild. And James, thank you for joining us for the interview. Could you tell us a bit about, could you briefly outline the workshop?
So the workshop, Mastering the Requirements Process, is about helping people manage their requirements process and develop their requirements process in a way that fits their own organisation. I think sometimes we find we create methodologies that people have to follow. What I love about the approach, the Volere approach, which is what we teach, and Volere means to wish for, is that it is very much a descriptive template that we use. It's there to prompt you, to help you. Yes, it provides structure as well, so you can use it to create a requirement specification. But above all, it is about helping you discover the real needs of the business and to be able to communicate those. Because requirements is not just a science, it's an art form. It's about how you really understand what people's real needs are and what the real problems that you are trying to solve are. And I think that to me gets to the essence of the course. It's about how do you get ideas out of one thick skull and get them into another thick skull. And people with so many different backgrounds and how do you get the ideas from somebody in the business to be understood by a developer, perhaps that developer's in another country, the other side of the world. So there's real challenges in terms of requirements, and that's why this course is so important. And I think it's also fascinating to me how the course has continued to develop. Each year there's a new version of it, because the real world changes. And so the first of these courses came about before the Agile Manifesto. But now we are 20 years on, and you'll find that the course is still relevant and has built-in approaches to Agile, for example.
It's a 3-day workshop.
Yeah.
Could you tell us what the main topics are during the course?
Well, we start off with the what we call a project blast-off. So it is how do you get the right foundations for your project? And there are really 3 things we're looking at here. It's the goals of the project, who the stakeholders are, and by stakeholders I mean anyone with an interest in the project. And the third, and probably the most important, is defining the work scope. And by the work scope that we're going to look at, I mean the area that we're going to study as part of our requirements work, not just looking at the product. Because often we may not know exactly what the scope of the product or the solution is going to be. And I think that provides the real solid foundations for the project. And using a work context model, then from that context model, we then follow the requirements down. So we will find what are the business events, the things that happen that the work has to respond to. And that, for them, we create business use cases. And at a certain time, you will have enough knowledge that you discover through trawling for requirements. And we talk about lots of different techniques and tools that you can use to discover requirements. And there will be a certain point in time when you then want to move from the scope and the requirements work that you have undertaken to understand the work to decide what your product is actually going to be. And here we then talk about the product use cases, but we could equally talk about using stories. So it's giving you options of different approaches that fit your own environment. And then, so having talked about functional requirements, we then talk about non-functional requirements and prototyping, what happens when things go wrong. because we'll start from the happy case, but looking at alternatives, misuse cases, and then on the final day we've talked about prototyping, but then look at how you manage your own requirements and how you manage your own requirements process. And then in the afternoon workshop is how do you apply the work? Because one of the things we're not after is people coming out of this course and then going back to work and suddenly changing everything. The most important thing to me is that people walk out with one or two ideas that they will then, or techniques that they will use the next day. Okay.
Okay. And when they go back to the office, what are the questions most asked and most answered during this course?
I think the most important one is that the challenge people face is that what people say they want is not what they really need. And the second one is that people will often come up with a solution. They already know the answer. And that's sort of some of the things I love perhaps most about the course is it introduces and it tries to encourage a different way of thinking about requirements. It's about trying to understand what the real essence of the work is. What's the underlying work? And so we'll think about how do we do things, but what is it? What is it we're doing? And in the new project we're involved in, will that change what we're doing? Are there some new opportunities? We look about innovation. How can we innovate here? Because if we're not innovating, why are we doing the project? I think those are the key questions to me.
You already mentioned the Agile Manifesto. A question we get often is about requirements in Agile projects. What's your view on this?
I think it's maturing. I've noticed it over the last couple of years. And even with people from the same organisation coming on the course here, you start to see that they are now developing their thinking and seeing what works and what doesn't work. And it's very clear that the role of business analysis, it doesn't matter what your job title is, but business analysis is actually key, absolutely key in projects. And it shouldn't just be left to the product owner, who can often be the most stressed and overworked person on an Agile team. But it really means having people who are linking in with the business and moving a little bit ahead of the development team, doing some reconnaissance work, if you like, and making sure that there is that supply of really good stories coming. And good stories don't drop off trees. You have to work to make a good story. And so we talk about what makes a good story. And it's always, the first time you write a story, it's not going to be the best story. So, and that's where an analytical mindset and analysis starts to come in real use.
And what are the job titles that you mostly see on this course? What is the target audience? You already mentioned business analyst, but can you specify some more?
Yes, I mean I suppose I'd look at it more from, we get people coming both from IT and the business. And I think that's really important because I think business analysis as a whole is moving away from just being seen as something done by IT to something that's fundamental to the organisation. And so the course can be applied not just to IT projects, but to any sort of project where you're coming up with a solution. And we would have product managers coming, project managers, people who work in the business as well. So it's a variety of job roles, and every course you get a different job title, if you like.
And how's the setup during the 3-day workshop? Is it how interactive is the workshop actually?
It's one of the things that I enjoy is hearing the experiences of other people. Because when you talk about a tool or a technique or a challenge, having people coming from some small, some large organisations really find that the challenges are all so familiar, and people get a lot out of bouncing ideas off each other. And so the course is full of workshops and giving people the chance to try stuff out. And I always keep the courses very interactive, because I think that learning, getting feedback and what people are saying is just absolutely key to, it's key to the work we do anyway, in terms of requirements.
Okay, thank you very much, James Archer, for the explanation.
Okay, thanks, Werner. It's a pleasure to be here again. Cheers.